Good evening, class, and welcome to our performance management class this evening. Today, we'll be taking the topic called target costing. In this section of our topic, we'll be looking at the origin of target costing, the purpose of target costing, the method used in target costing, the elements in the estimated cost and target costs. Then we'll be closing the target cost gap. It and we'll look at some examples. So let's start right away. The origin of target costing. It began with recognition that they bought, and the life cycle demanding more and more diverse products, and their life cycle is getting shorter. So that means that new products have to be designed more frequently to meet customers' design. Then the companies that are making this customers' demand, they are becoming aware that large portion of the cost of making a product is spent at the design stage. So the stage before the product goes into manufacture. And so the design stage is the critical factor for ensuring that new products are manufactured in such a way that it will be affordable by the consumer, and the company making the product to be able to make a profit. Now, what is the purpose of target costing? It's a method of strategic management of cost and profit. It involves setting a target objective for the maximum cost of a product and then working out to achieve this target. Now, what it means is that one, the company is going to set a target that our target cost, the maximum cost we are going to incur, will be no more than this. So they're going to set a ceiling for their costs, and they are going to make sure that this budgeted cost will be achieved. So it is used for business strategy in general and marketing strategy in particular, where companies that operate in a competitive market, new products are being introduced into the market so that they can compete successfully. The companies will be able to continually improve their existing products or design new ones, sell their product at competitive price. This might be the same price that their competitors are charging or lower, then make a profit. All right, so target costing and new product design development. Target cost is mainly used for new product development. This is because whenever a new product is designed and developed for a competitive market, a company needs to know the maximum cost of the new product so that it will sell at a profit. So if you don't know how much you are going to spend, you will not know how much you will charge as your price so that you will make profits. A company might decide that to the price it would like to charge for a new product under development will be a certain percentage. And so the company will have to achieve that level of profitability in order to get their customers' needs. Now, how do we do target costing? Now, look at the process here. First, the target costing, a new product and design and is being made. So what we'll do here is, after knowing the product that we want to make, we need to first determine the target selling price. So you may be doing a product that somebody else is doing, and you check how much people are willing to buy that product. If maybe, for example, you are trying to create a new product, let's say a power bank, and it's already in the market, that design, and maybe they are selling it for 20,000 naira, the same rating. You can't go and be selling your own 25,000 or 22,000 like that, right? Because maybe it's a popular brand that is already in the market. People are going to be patronizing that and leaving yours. So you determine the target sales price. You might be selling the same price as us, or you may sell a little bit lower. Now, once you determine your selling price, you need to determine your profit margin. You want to make 20% profit margin, 20 or 30% profit margin. Now, there is a difference here between profit margin and cost margin. Or, yeah, there's a difference between profit margin um, and cost margin. Maybe I'm not using the right word, but this is what I mean here. Profit margin and markup, yes, and markup. Profit margin is comparing your profit to your sales price to see your percentage of profit of sales. And markup is on cost. Let me give you the example of what I'm saying here. Let's try this an example now. Let's say this is a selling price. Selling price. Let's say this is 1,000 naira. Then, if you say your cost price, let's say this is 800 naira, right? So normally profit is usually 1,000 naira minus 800, which is 200, right? Now, this 200 naira, is it a margin? What is the profit margin? What is the markup? So now, margin is simply percentage of sales. Margin is simply profit over selling price times 100%. While markup is profit over cost price times 100%. So if we say profit margin, this is the same thing as saying 200 over 1,000 times 100%, which is giving you 20% profit margin. For markup, this is 200 all over 800 times 100%. So what's the markup here? Let's use our calculator. This is 2 over 8 or 1 over 4. 4 over 100 is 25%. So 25%. So you can see here that if you are told margin, so take note, if you hear the word margin, it's on sales. If you hear the word markup, it's on cost. So if somebody says SP 1000, cost 800, find 20% margin. All you simply do is 0.2 multiplied by 1000. That is your profit margin, which is 200. Now, if you are told find 25% markup, so it's simply 0.25 times 800. So that's 200 naira. So you see, markup and margin are two different things and two different percentage. So this is an aside. I just have to tell you that what we are told here is you determine the target sales price, then you get the target profit margin, so that you will not go and use cost margin. You use margin. Don't go and use cost markup. Then when you get your selling price, you less your profit margin from it. What you have is your target cost. That target cost is the maximum cost that you must spend to meet your target profit. If you spend above that, your profit margin will go down because you don't want to sell below that price. If you want to maintain your profit margin and your cost exceed your target cost, of course, that means your sales price will exceed. But you don't want to exceed your selling price. So if your target cost is exceeded, your profit is reducing. The reason for target costing is The reason that target costing is used for new products is that the opportunities for cutting costs to meet target costs are much greater during the design stage than after the product development has been completed and the production process has been set up. So during the design stage, you will know whether it is okay to go on with this product, if you can cut cost and all that. Typically, when a new product is designed, the first consideration is to design a product that will meet the customer's need better than the rival products. However, this initial product design must result in a product with a cost that is too high and which will be therefore not be profitable. The estimated cost of a product can be compared with the target cost. If the expected cost is higher than the target cost, then there is a there is a cost gap. So it means that you have to look for your target cost. When you look for your target cost, as seen in that example there, you will now go and check for your expected cost. What you're expecting to spend to make the product. Now, when you check your expected cost, the expected cost is supposed to be lower than your target cost because your target cost is supposed to be the maximum cost you spend. If your expected cost is higher than your target cost, then there is a cost gap which must be bridged. If your expected cost is lower, then it's fine. A cost gap must be closed by finding ways of making the products more cheaply without losing any of the features that should make it attractive to the customer and give it value. For example, it might be possible to simplify the product design or production process without losing any important feature of the product. It might also be possible to redesign the product using a different and cheaper material without loss of value. Having worked out how to reduce cost at the product design stage, management should try to ensure that the product is developed and the method of producing it is introduced according to the plan so that the target cost is achieved. So we've seen how it is done. So the principle of target costing, this is a summary here. Target costing is based on the idea that when a product is developed, a company will have a reasonable idea about the price at which it will be able to sell the product. So you don't produce the product first, then you determine the price, because that's what most people do. They will produce a product, and when it costs them a particular amount, they now add a markup and determine selling price. Like we did before, we said our cost was 800 naira. We now said we want to add a markup of 25% and we now sell at 1,000. So we're doing the opposite here. Before the product is made, we have a price at our hand that we want to sell. Then we want to know how much profit we are going to make on it. Then the sales volume that we'll be able to achieve what our intentions are, achieve our targets over the expected life of the product. All right, so let's look at target costing. Here, the design and define product specification. You have to define the specification. And from there, you have here and define the cost, the current achievable cost. But before you go there, when we do this, we set targets. When we set the target, of course, for us to set target price, we have a defined target volume. Okay. Then when we set our target price, we want to get our target cost. So when we have our target price, we need to define our profit, which is our return on investment, which is the profit margin. So that will help us to know what our target cost will be. Then when we see any our expected cost, if it is higher than our target cost, we try to close the gap. Elements in the estimated cost and target cost. A problem with target costing is to make sure that the estimates of cost are realistic. The estimates should be realistic. It is difficult to measure the cost of a product that has not yet been created. And the cost must include items such as raw material wastage rates, labor time, is might be expected to practice. Now look at raw material. The target cost should allow for wasted rate or loss in learning process costing. We have normal loss. We have if you want to maybe you want to make a chair and you know that kilogram of particular material use that stage used to. So instead of kilogram, you buy 10% more. So that means you buy 22 kilogram. So that when the 10% wastage is achieved, you will get your desired result. So that's what you do. You allow for this expected wastage. The price of material should also allow for any possible increases up to the time when the new products would have been completed. Of course, in this time and period, prices of things usually increase, so you have to allow for increasing in price. Estimating price of materials can be difficult when prices are volatile, such as commodity price, which can be subject to changes, increases and falls within a relative short period of time. In Nigeria here, you know that dollar affects many things. So prices will increase, sometimes it will reduce a little, increase sharply. Then direct labor. The target cost should allow for any expected idle time that will occur during the manufacture of the product. This might be the normal level of idle time in a company's manufacturing operation. So sometimes we have idle time and productive time, and idle time is being paid for. So sometimes this idle time is not their own fault, waiting for materials to come. They're not doing anything. Maybe there's machine downtime. Of course, like in today's class, we had some idle time when the system was malfunctioning, getting ready to come up. So if this were to be a production department, that period of time when the class was idle is at the idle time. But it's counting for this idle time. Then production overheads. A target cost could be a target marginal cost. Yeah, target marginal cost. However, production overhead costs are often a large proportion of total manufacturing costs, and it is therefore more likely that will be a target cost will be a full cost, which will include production overhead. Now, if activity-based costing is used, we need to identify opportunities for limiting the amount of production overhead absorbed by designing the product in a way that limits the use of activities that drive costs. For example, by reducing the need for material movement or quality inspection. Of course, quality inspections will be, highly required, but sometimes quality inspections will take costs. So you may want to boycott that process. Now let's look at this example here. The company has designed a new product. The product name is NP8. It currently estimates that in the current market, the product could be sold for 70 naira per unit, and that's the selling price that is determined. A gross profit margin of at least, so that means this is the least, you can't go below that. So if your cost is higher than 70%, then your gross profit margin will be lower than 30%. So they say a gross profit of at least percent on the selling price will be required to cover administrative and marketing overhead and to make an acceptable level of profit. So what it means here is, first of all, you selling price. So this is an example we have here. Let's say example one. We have our selling price. Selling price was 70 naira. Target profit equals to 30% of 70 naira, which is what? Let's activate our calculator. 30% of 70 naira, that's 21 naira. So 21 naira will now be our target profit. So what should be our target cost? Our target cost will be selling price minus profit. which is 70 minus 21. I think that should be 49. Let's see. 70 minus 21, that's 49. So 49 naira is our target cost, right? Now, we are now asked that a cost estimation study has produced the following estimate of production cost for NP8. We now say direct material M1, 9 naira per unit. We are not told how many, okay, 9 naira per unit. So you will now come here and say estimated cost. So you start building your estimated cost. Estimated cost. Okay, so the estimated cost, you start building them up. Direct material, we have M1. How much is M1? 9 naira. So this is 9 naira. Direct material, M2. How much is it? Each unit of the product will require 3 meters of material M2, but there will be a loss in the production of 10% of the material used. Material M2 costs 1.80 per meter, 1.8. So M2 is here, 1.08. Let's check. 1.80, 1.80, 1.80 multiplied by what was told here. Each unit will require 3 meters. 3 meters. So you now say times 3 meters, and we are told that there will be a 10% loss. So how do you account for the loss? It means that you must also include that loss. If you buy exactly 3 meters and 10% now gets lost, you end up with 2.7. So you need to account for that 10% loss. So what you do is you multiply by 1.1. So this one is 100%. This 0.1 is the 10%. So what you are going to do now is, let's work it backward. 1.1 multiplied by 3, it means you are buying 3.3 meters instead of 3 meters. Now multiply by multiply by 1.8, it means 5.94. 5.94 per unit. 5.94. Then in the third one here, you have direct labor. Each unit of the product will require 0.5 hours of direct labor time. It is expected that there will be an avoidable idle time of 5% of the total labor time paid for. So that the same way, 5% of the total labor time. So we'll account for it here. Direct labor, we said how much is it? They are paying 19 naira and there will be 0.5 hours. So this is 19 naira times 0.5 hours times the expected idle time is 5%. So we'll now include the 5% by saying times 1.05. So this is the total amount you are going to be paying. So what you do now is 19 multiplied by 0.5 multiplied by 1.05 0.05, and that gives you 9.975. Am I correct? 9.975. That's fine. Then the next thing here to do is production overhead. It is expected that the production overhead will be absorbed into the product at a rate of 60 naira per direct labor hours for each active hours work. For each active hours work, overhead are not absorbed into the cost of idle time. So 60 naira. So you say production overhead, I'll call it POH. How much is it again? 60 naira. 60 naira multiplied by the active hour. You will not include this. So that should be 30 naira. That should be 30 naira. So this is 60 multiplied by 0.5. That should be 30 naira. Okay, 30 naira. What else? That's done. We are asked to find the expected cost. The expected cost here, expected cost, just a moment. Okay, so our expected cost is going to be the total of those expected costs that we've made here, starting from this 9 naira. So let's add them. Already have 30 naira on my calculator. So I'll go ahead and start with 30 naira and I'll move up plus 9.975 plus 5.94 plus 9 naira. That will give me 54.915. 54.915. Now that's your target expected cost. We are also told to look for the target cost, which is what we did before. And we got our target cost to be 49. And we are told to find the size of the cost gap. So that's what we want to do now. Cost gap is expected cost if higher minus target. Of course, if the expected cost is lower, we will not be having a cost gap. So this is going to give us 54.915 minus 49. So that should give us 5.915. That is your expected, your target, your cost gap. So this cost gap, you need to do everything. Okay, they approximated. I didn't approximate, so I got 54.95. They got 55, so that's no problem. It's the same thing like what I did for you. Still the same thing. All right, so cost gap is 6. Now the cost closing the target cost gap. Target costs are rarely achievable immediately, and ways must be found to reduce cost and close the cost gap. Target costing should involve a multidisciplinary approach to resolving the problem of how to close the gap. The management accountant should be involved in measuring estimated costs, and ways of reducing these costs might be in the product design and engineering, the manufacturing processes used, selling method, raw material purchasing, all these things, ideas for closing the gap could be gotten from there. So 3 common methods of closing the target cost gap. We have to redesign products, to make use of common processes and components that are already used in the manufacture of other products by the company. So instead of using a high a, a, a other products or other design that is going to require high costs, can now use common processes that is already in use so that you will not be paying high design costs. Then you can also reduce the cost of materials supplied. So you discuss with suppliers to reduce the material cost. Then we eliminate non-value added activity or non-value added features of the product. Something is non-value if it fails to add anything of value to the customer. So the cost of non-value added product, feature or activities can therefore be saved without any loss of value for the customer. Then you need to train your staff in a more efficient techniques and working methods so that the cost of your machine, of your product will not be high because of wastage. Then to achieve economics of scale, you need to produce larger quantities. It will reduce your fixed cost, your overheads. Okay, to reduce your overhead because they will be spread over larger quantity. We said variable costs are constant in per unit, but they vary in total. Meanwhile, fixed cost is fixed in the total but varies in per unit. So now what we mean here is that if you plan to make a fixed cost, let's say you have a factory rent of 1 million naira, and that's your fixed cost. If you produce 1 million, 1 million goods, or let's say 500,000 quantities of goods, if you divide your fixed cost of rent by the number of products, it means you are paying 2 naira per product, 2 naira of your fixed cost of rent per product. But if you produce higher, let's say you make 750 or you make 1 million, if your storage capacity can carry, then you have succeeded in reducing it from 2 naira to 1 naira. Advantages of target costing. It helps to improve the understanding within a company of product cost. So because we are using target costing, the organization tend to understand the cost the company is incurring, and they see that, wow, this is the cost we are going to be incurring. They have a more in-depth knowledge kind of cost involved. Then we have another advantage of recognizing the most effective way of reducing costs, and that is it helps you to plan and control costs from the product design stage. So you don't have to just make your product first and you start thinking of how to cut costs, future costs or other costs. Before you even make the product, actual product, while you are designing it, you are recognizing how you can effectively reduce your cost. It helps to create focus on the final consumer of the product because you want to add value to the customer. And so anything that will not add value to the customer will not also be done so that you will not be charging too much for the customer or reduce your profit. Yes, sometimes you find out that certain feature might be good, it might be it might create convenience for the consumer, but will it add value? Is there any added value? If that feature is not there, will the product still function the way it's supposed to be? So if it can, that means that thing that you're thinking about has no added value. It is a multidisciplinary approach and considers the entire supply chain. And target costing can be used together with recognized method for reducing costs, such as value analysis, value engineering, just-in-time production, and then total quality management. All right, let's look at the implications now of using target cost. So implication could be what is the challenges that you might have. The cost, the use of target costing has implication for pricing, cost control, and performance management. Target costing can be used with pricing policy for a company's product or services. A company might decide on target selling price for either a new or an existing product, which it considers necessary. And having identified the target price that it wants for the product, the company can then work out the target cost. That's an implication. Cost control and performance has a different emphasis when target costing is used. One of them is that cost savings are actively sought after and made continuously over the life of the product. So you are continuously trying to reduce your cost, save costs. Then there is the joint responsibility for achieving benchmark savings. So it means that all departments will join hands so that they will achieve a particular benchmark in the overall company. So if one department fails to deliver their deliverables in terms of cost, other departments will now have to find a way to cushion the effect of the failure of that department so that they will all in unison achieve the cost benchmark for the company. Then staff are trained and empowered to find new ways to reduce costs while maintaining the required quality. So one of the ways here is you still make the same standard quality but with less material than you used to and avoiding waste. All right, so target costing and services. Target costing can be used for services as well as for products, and services vary widely in nature, and it is impossible to make general statement that applies to all types of services. However, some features for service industry that make them different from manufacturing concerns are as follows. Some service industry are labor intensive and direct material costs are only a small part of the total cost. Unlike manufacturing, you have direct material, direct labor. Some services are just labor intensive and sometimes they may not have direct material. So opportunities for achieving reduction in materials may therefore be small. So you'll not be looking at materials when you are looking at target cost. Then overhead costs in many services are very high. Effective target costing will therefore focus to overhead costs. So you know here that in um, manufacturing company, we said if you want to reduce your overhead, you need to produce very higher quantities so that you have more quantity to share the overhead. You use your overhead. So that's it. A service company might develop system using the same employee and the same assets. They can also introduce new services or amendment to existing services, therefore adding to the work burden of the employees and making the best use of them in diversification. So a system of target costing therefore needs to focus on quality of service and value for the customer. Introducing a new service might involve a loss of value in the delivery of existing services to the customer. And we're given an example here that adding a new service to telephone call center could result in longer waiting time for callers. So people want to call and you that is doing a call center, you now decide that okay, you have SMS service and you also decide that okay, apart from that, you can send on WhatsApp. I just cite an example. So people that came to call, normally if they make the call, they will go, but now you have more waiting time for callers. New services might be introduced without proper consideration being given to whether the service is actually profitable. For example, a restaurant might add additional items to its menu in the belief that the only additional cost is the cost of the food. In practice, there will be implications for the purchasing and preparation of the food, and possibly also for the delivery of the food from the kitchen to the restaurant dining area. And so the new items added to the menu might therefore make losses unless all aspects of the cost are properly considered. So there is a need for us to consider. So when a single delivery system is used for services, the cost of service will consist largely of allocated and apportioned overhead. For example, for target costing to be successful, there must be a consistent and fair method of attributing overheads to services, both existing and new services. Now let's go and see a comprehensive example. So this example is typical of what you will be given each time you have an exam question on target costing. So let's look at this. A company wishes to introduce a new product to the market. The company estimates the market for the product to be 50,000 units. The company used target costing. So sometimes you will not hear the word target costing. But how will you know you'll be doing target costing? I'll also tell you. Now, the current projected cost are as follows. So these are the costs that you'll be using for building up the estimated cost. Then we have non-manufacturing costs, others. All right, so we have the target selling price to give the target margin, and we have worked it out here. 20% of 100,000 is 20,000. And so the target cost here is 80,000. Of course, target cost here is 80,000. Now look at the manufacturing product now. It said bought in parts 100 components. So when we say bought in parts, that means these are parts that were bought. And what they did here was 100 components multiplied by 50,000 units. 50,000 units. So what happened here is 100, I will just say multiply by 50. That's 500. Okay, let me use 50,000 units. Let me do it again. 100 components multiplied by 50,000. That gives me 5 million. Of course, there's a 3 zeros down there. It's 5,000 I should be here and not 50,000. Except maybe they mean 1,000 units. So for it to be 50,000, it has to be 1,000 units. Let's leave it like that. And this is 50,000. We'll do the calculation. If it is 50,000 a month, then it's fine. Then direct labor. We are told that assembly of components. Now we said 10 hours is what they will use. And they are being paid 500 naira per hour. So that is 5,000 hours. That's fine. Machine cost. Machine cost 750,000 naira. 750 million naira. And because we are doing 50,000 units, when we divide it, we are getting 15,000 as the cost. Okay. Then we have ordering and receiving. Ordering and receiving. We have 500 orders. And because we're having 500 orders, we have 100 components that are bought in. Okay. Then we are charging them 500 naira per order. So 500 orders is being made, right? Then each time you bring the brought in parts, you are bringing 100 times it by 500 orders, times it by the amount it is being ordered per order, then divided by the 50,000 units that you are making as this 50,000 units. So that gives you this 15,000. Sorry, that gives you this 500 naira. Then quality assurance, 10 hours. Of course, is this 10 hours of direct labor at 800 naira per hour. That's 8,000. Then reworking, they say is 10% probability of failure. 10% probability of failure. So the ones that you have probability of failing is 10%. It is that 10% that you are going to work at a cost of 1,000 naira per cost of reworking. So the probability of failing is 10%. Okay. So we have non-manufacturing costs. Distribution, we are told is 10,000 naira. Then warranty costs, we have 10% probability of recall times 15,000. So 10% of 15,000, which is the correction cost, is 1,500. Just as we have 10% here of 10,000, that gives us 1,000. So when we added all this, 50 plus 15, 65, plus 10, 75, plus 10, 85, 86, 91. So that's the 91,000 here. So you find out that the estimated cost is 91. So now they will give you another story. The company has undertaken market research, which found that several proposed features of the new products were not valued by customers. Redesign to remove the feature leads to a reduction in the number of components down to 80 components. Now instead of 100, it's now 80. So you now need to check it again. And a direct material cost reduction of 12%. The reduction in complexity has other impacts. Assembly time will be reduced by 20%. Quality assurance will now require 6 hours. The probability of a failure at the inspection stage will fall to 5%. The probability of an after-sales failure will also fall to 5%. Cost of warranty correction will fall by 2,000. Reduced weight of the product will reduce shipping cost by 1,000 per unit. Now look at it now. The revised cost, we have the before, which is what we saw before, and the after. Now in the manufacturing cost, the bought-in part was 100 components, and we got 5,000, right? Now the bought-in part now is now 80 components. 80 components with 12% reduction, which we said here, with a direct material cost of 12% reduction. So what do they mean here? So we need to rework this. What it means here, instead of 100 now, you're having 80 times, instead of this you will now say times 50,000 you did before, times 0.8. Let's see what it will give us. 80 times 50,000 times 0.8. Okay, so I'm not doing it well here. It's just 80 times 50,000 that you just use. So let me reverse the 0.8. Sorry, I can't fathom where they got it. 44,000. But what I know here, this is 50%. This is 50,000. You can do it another way here. Let's say 50,000 will multiply by 12% reduction. Sorry, 12% reduction. 100 minus 12. Sorry. Need to clear this. 100 minus 12 is as good as 88. So this is, let's multiply this by 50,000. That's a 44. That is what they mean here. So if there's a 12% reduction, if you use 80% components, so it gives you 44. Then when we have 10 hours before and we multiply by 500, we have 5,000. And now we are having 10% reduction, which is as good as saying 8 times 500. Or you simply say 5,000 times 90 times 0.9. It's still the same thing. Let's see if it will give us the same thing. 5,000 times 0.9. That will give us no, to not give us the same thing. You will just simply use the 8 hours you are given times 500. In the case of this one, they didn't tell you how much per unit. So you just simply use this 50,000 multiplied by the reduction is 12%, which is like as good as saying 88% of what was used before. But here you are told that it's reduced to 8 hours. Okay. Then we have machine cost. Nothing affects the machine cost. But we are now told that ordering and receiving, we used to do 500 orders, yes, 100 components, 500 naira per order, as we said, divided by 50,000 units, that gives us 500. But now it is now 80 components, it gives us 400. Quality assurance, before it was 10 hours, now reduced to 6 hours. 6 times 800, give me this. Reworking cost, before it was 10%, but it was now reduced to 5%. So that would be like half of the price. Non-manufacturing distribution, we were told, what were we told about distribution? Hmm. Distribution. Distribution. Okay. Let's see how they calculate the distribution. Okay. 10,000 naira. So that would be on 100. Let's try something. If this is 10,000, let's divide it by 100 components. Now multiply by 80 components. Let's see if we got 8,000. No, that is not it. Let's see what it was achieved, how it was achieved. Assembly time, okay. Oh, reduce weight and we reduce shipping cost by 1,000 naira. That's it. So it will reduce, the distribution is the shipping, reduced by 1,000, so it's 900. That's fine. Warranty cost, 10% was before, now it's 5%. How did we get this 13,000? We said correction of warranty costs will fall by 2,000. It will fall by 2,000. So 15 to 13, that's the fall. And we are not told that after sales failure will also fall to 5%. So the after sales is the warranty. So that's the 5% of 13,000. It gives you 650. So we have here the target cost is achieved. We have 91 here and we have 78,350. So what was our target cost earlier? 80,000 was target cost. And now when we did we closed the gap we got 78,350. So the target cost is achieved, meaning that you will not go above your 80,000 target. You are now within that 80,000 that you plan to do. So that's how we do target costing. So let's look at the process again. This broad illustration is what should help you when you're doing a target costing. So first of all, in the question, it's good for you to do your estimated cost first. Do your estimated cost. For some, you might decide to do your target cost. In this question here, the information lends to doing your estimated cost first. But what I usually say is do your target cost by looking out for the selling price, then looking out for the target margin. It's easy to get that to be given to you. Sometimes they might not even give you the selling price. They can give you the targets, they can give you the profit margin. Sometimes they might give you the target cost. They can give you the target cost, which is 80,000, and they can give you the target margin, which is 20,000. So how will you do it? How will you do it? If they give you the target cost, then they have given you everything. So there will be no need for you to do selling price and target margin. There will be no need because your objective is to get what? Your target cost. But if they give you the profit, 20,000, and you are not giving your selling price, if they only give you target profit and target margin, how do you get your selling price? All you need to do is selling price will be equal to target profit all over profit margin. So what you will now do, this is 20,000 divided by, okay, divided by 20%. So when we say divided by 20%, here is 0.2. So this is the same thing as saying times 100 over 20. If you are dividing by 20 over 100, when you are taking it to multiply, it will be 100 over 20. So what it means here is 20,000 times 100 divided by 20. So that's giving the 100,000. But it's as good as saying 20,000 divided by 0.2. Still the 100,000. So if you are given your target profit and your target margin, all you need to do is look for your selling price by using target profit, which is the naira value on top, the percentage under. Then you get your selling price. After getting your selling price, you get your target cost by lessening your selling price from the target profit. So I just have to say this because sometimes you may not expect to get selling price and target profit or target margin. They might just give you selling price, target margin. That's all. So you'll be the one to find the selling price, and you'll be the one to find the target profit and the cost target. Sometimes they might give you selling price. They might not give you selling price. They might just give you profit and target margin. So you have to convert. So I have to say that when you do all of this and you get your cost target or target cost, the next thing to do is your manufacture your projected cost. So when you do your projected cost and you get a value, then you need to do your cost target. Your cost target, I'm sorry, your cost gap. Your cost gap will only be there if the expected cost is higher than the target cost. Then you now look at the question to see ways in which you can reduce the cost. So you take them line by line, line by line. So what I will even say is that you will go to the first cost, let's say manufacturing costs, and now look at it. Is there any additional information that hampers on the manufacturing cost? If it is not, we leave it. If there is any that hampers, that the additional information talks about, attack that one first and reduce it. Then bring the ones that did not affect it and join it with that, and you'll get your revised additional cost. Or you can use this pattern before and after. You can use it in the exam. So the before, so you'll be looking at this one here that was given to you and the additional information to get after. If before and after is the same as in the case here, as one that was the same, machine ordering cost, you just put them in the same line. But if the before and after, you do one and do the other one on the line below. So whichever method is okay for you, then it's fine. So the question will help you to achieve your target cost. So you cannot say that the cost is not achieved. So you need to look for ways from the question to ensure it is achieved. So is there any ICANN pass question that talks about target cost? Let's see if there's any ICANN pass question that discusses target cost. Okay, just a moment. So check question number 1. There's no question here. Target cost. Question number 2, none. Question number 3, none. Question number 4, none. Question number 5, none. Question number 6, none. Question number 7, none. So you need to check newer questions to see whether you have questions that have to do with target costing. So that's it. Then we have life cycle costing. So we'll take that now so that we'll have a comprehensive class. So just a moment. So my phone will not go off. It's telling me that my phone should be plugged. All right. So Life cycle costing is another topic that will also not be ignored. Now, when we are doing learning curve, we talked about life cycle in one of the questions. So sometimes they might include life cycle costing with target costing. They might include it in learning curve. Now, life cycle costing is sometimes called whole life costing or whole life cycle costing. Now, it is a technique that aims to identify the total cost associated with the ownership of an asset to that decision, so that decision can be made about the asset acquisition. Okay, so it recognizes too that decisions made at the initial acquisition have an effect in locking in certain costs in the future. An example is given that, as a simple example, if a person buys a new printer, that person is committed to buying toner cartridge that are compatible to the printer. So if the person wants to buy a printer, he has to choose between printers with initial costs might be very less. But you see, the toner that is going to be buying afterward will be very expensive. Is it what he wants? Or he may want to look at one that the initial cost might be high and the toner afterward will be lower. So life cycle costing analysis will allow a choice to be made based on the lifetime of the cost. So it means too that sometimes when you want to buy a phone or even a car, you look at the lifespan of the car that you want to buy, and you will now make a choice. Should I want to buy this car now because it's cheaper than the cost of maintenance? Or will you want to buy? Sometimes some people will tell you that, oh, I don't want, no matter how much I like this phone, the cost of the screen will keep changing, or the cost of the battery is too much, and I will not be able to maintain it. So that's the kind of thing. A company will, of course, be concerned with cost when it buys a complex asset of some kind, but it will also be concerned with reliability, servicing time, maintenance cost, like phone I was telling you, maintenance cost. So life cycle costing can be applied to major asset acquisition and introduction of new products to the market. Now, there are life cycle costs. Look at the cost here. Costs of a product or asset over its lifetime could be divided into three categories. So you take note of these three categories. The first one is the acquisition cost, setup cost, or the market cost. These are costs incurred initially. What I usually say is it is the cost that is incurred in purchasing the assets and putting it in the location in working order. Normally, if you are doing financial accounting or so, that will be your initial recognition of your costs, which will enter into your accounting books. So the cost that you make in order to bring the asset, to buy the asset, to install it so that it will start functioning, because bringing it to the location where it will be working. All these are the acquisition cost, setup cost, market entry cost. So it means that, for example, you want to buy a baking machine, and the cost of the baking machine is 50 million naira. So it will not only include that 50 million naira, the cost of bringing a machine from, let's say, McAdams is a popular company that sells this machine, down to your factory where it is going to be installed, cost of installing it. It could even be solar machine, solar system, and cost of buying the solar generator, bringing it to your house, installing it, making it to be working because you want to use it for market purposes. So that's what we are saying. Then the second one is that one here is a one-off cost. It's major cost. You make acquisition cost every now and then. Setup cost is also done at the beginning, not at the beginning before operation. The second one is operational cost or running cost. So these are the costs of operation. It's just like you buy a phone. Let me not use phone. The generator I said, or the baking oven that you have, the cost of what you need to make it fuel the engine so that it will be running. You need to, if it's electric, you also electricity bill. If there is no light, you now need to power it with generator, repair. You need to service the generator, repair it when it is damaged. All these are operational and running costs. Then we have end of life cost. This is cost incurred to withdraw the product Okay, so um end of life cost. End of life cost is the cost incurred to withdraw a product from the market or demolish the asset at the end of its life. So the generator I said before, it means that the cost incurred to withdraw the generator from the market so that you transform the place to how it was before. So it means that the generator house you built, for that you need to destroy the house so that the generator can be lifted out. Then any other thing that was removed in order to make way for that we need to be now replaced. So this is what they call end of life cost of the asset. Now, acquisition or setup costs are one-off capital expenditure and only incurred once. Even training of staff, establishing of system. Similarly, end of life costs are one-off. But the running costs are costs that are recurrent. They keep coming every now and then. As long as the asset is being in use or the product is being manufactured or being produced, these costs will run, but they may vary over time. All right, so although costs are incurred through the life of an asset, a large portion of these costs are committed very early in the stage of the product cycle. when the decision to develop the new product or construct the new building is being made. Like we said in target costing, in the design stage, you see that a lot of cost is being incurred at the early part. Now look at this example here. A transport company wishes to buy a new heavy goods vehicle which will be run for 100,000 miles and then sold. It is considering two types. We are giving relevant information here, lorry A and lorry B. Look at their initial cost. The first one is 10 million naira, the other one is 15 million. So, but you'll be surprised, don't look at the initial costs when you are buying the products. Now you now look at cost per service. Each time you service lorry A, you spend 500,000. Each time you service lorry B, you spend 400,000. Then how many miles, after how many miles will you request service? The first one, after every 10,000 miles, you request for service. The second one is after every 25,000 miles, you request for service. So you see that lorry B is more economical, so to say. So we are requiring more mileage, then smaller cost. Then running cost per mile. How did we get the running cost per mile? Um, let's see what they did here. Let's try 500,000 divided. Okay, no, it's not divided by 10,000 miles. No, that's not it. Now, this is the running cost per mile that was given here in this question. The scrap value at the end of life. So this is the scrap that you have at the end of the life. Then the life cycle of each of the lorry based, the life cycle cost of each of the lorry based on the above is as follows now. Initial cost here is 10 million minus the scrap value, which is 1 million. So here is 15 minus 3. So the capital cost is 9 million, because when you buy it for 10 million, you will still sell it out as scrap for 1 million. So it's as good as your cost is 9 million here and your cost is 12 million. Then we have lifetime use mileage. We are told that it will run for 1,000 miles, 100,000 miles. Okay, so this is the mileage, 100,000, 100,000, that's fine. Then how many miles will you run before you service it? It will run 10,000 miles, 25,000 miles. So how many services will you make? If you have a lifetime of 100,000 and you are servicing every 10,000, that means you make 10 services. If you have 100,000 miles and you are servicing every 25,000, you do 4 servicing during the lifetime. And we are told that cost per service here is 500,000 and you make 10 services, which means you spend service cost 5 million. Whereas you have 4 services to make 400,000 each, 1.6 million. That's your service cost. Then the running cost, number of miles, of course, is 100,000 in its lifetime, 100,000 in its lifetime. Then the running cost per mile is 750, 500. So that gives you 750 million, 75 million as against 50 million. When you now add 9 million to 5 million to 75 million, 75 plus 9 is 85. 85, sorry, is 84. 84 plus 5 is 89 as against 63 million. So you are looking at not just the initial cost. If you deceived by the initial cost to go for this 10 million, you end up spending a whole life cycle cost of 89. Whereas if you have checked all the costs involved, you'll be spending in the second one 63,600,000. All right, so life cycle costing methodology. A proper purchasing decision requires that the cost of all available options should be taken into account. Now, this involves cost identification and estimation and discounting. So you need to put into discounting. Discounting should also be taken into that. So a discounting is a technique that takes into account the time value of money. So when we say discounting, it is not price discount. It is discount as against discounting for time value. So what we mean here is that 1 naira today is worth more than 1 naira in the future. So it means that um this can be used in the terms of, like, let's say dollar. 1 naira, how much dollar can it buy today? Or let's say 1,000 naira, or we can say 100,000 naira. How many dollars can it buy now? In the future, how many dollars can that 100,000 naira buy? It might buy smaller value. So that's why some people, when they were looking at their minimum wage, then when it was 35,000, how much was the dollar rate? So when you check, they may be earning higher dollar back then, but now that same amount is earning fewer dollars. So that's what we need to take into account, discounting. With that, someone was saying that um, I read something somewhere that someone was being paid a certain amount of money like 20 years ago, and they increased his salary over time, and at the end, when he retired, he was being paid more. But when it was compared to the dollar rate as at that period of time, he was being paid the same dollar amount throughout his working life. But in naira value, you think that yes, it has been increased, but here they are taking into consideration the time value of money. Perhaps that was why they increased the salary to commensurate with what the current realities in the exchange rate was. So that's one thing that we need to take into consideration. Benefits of life cycle costing include improved evaluation of options, like we did in Lorry A and Lorry B, because they're looking at the life costs. So that's it. The aim of life cycle costing is to look at the life cost. So after now, you'll be looking at life cost in what you want to buy. You just don't want to buy. That's why you see some people go for a particular car. They'll say it's economy, fuel economy. They will tell you it's also service economy. So some people will go for it, and it may have higher costs of purchase. And you'll be wondering why they're not buying this smaller cost. Don't go there. Oh. And sometimes you will see in phones too, like in Samsung phones or in iPhones, the cost may be high. The running cost also may be high. Okay. And the life cost of using a Samsung phone may be very higher than using other Android phones. Or the life cost of using an iPhone may be very costly than using a Samsung and other Android phones. And using the language of target costing, some of these costs here may not really be adding value. They are just doing that for convenience. And so you'll be asking yourself, if this feature is not in this phone, as it is now in Android phone, that some features are there, it's not in iPhone, will the phone not function? So if it is, then it's not adding value. I'm not saying that these phones are not adding value, but for the sake of lecture, that's what we are saying. So there's an improved evaluation of options because you are considering the life cost of the asset. Then there is going to be an improved management awareness of the consequence of their decision. So you're not just making purchase, you're looking at consequences of your decision. Then there is improved forecasting. Like in the case of Lorry A and Lorry B, we are forecasting how much miles it is going to run before you make services. And you're also saying that your running costs per mile is 750. We sometimes you see question that will tell you inflation rate will affect it every year, this inflation index. It will improve your forecasting, and it will improve understanding of the trade-off between performance of an asset and its cost. So an asset is being performed, is performing, and what is the cost? So you find out that, let's say lorry A and lorry B that we used in the example here, assume it was machine A and machine B, and we look at the cost versus what is the productivity. So it means that, assuming that this 89,000 cost here is producing more output than this 63, we found out that the output will be shared and the cost per output will be lower than the cost per output here. So sometimes you see the trade-off and you now say, oh, even though I'm buying this at live cost of 89, I might have to share the cost into so number, okay? And it will be life cost per unit might be reduced. So life cost is important. Life cost per unit will now make you to know which one of them is to be done. So that's the trade-off between the asset and its cost. Then the problem of life cycle costing is availability of data. Data may not be available at the time when you are making your decision. How will you know the number of mileage you are going to cover the lifetime? How will you know the service cost per service? Except you have data. Some of this data may not be available, and it's usually difficult and time consuming. So the processes involved is difficult and time consuming. Often organizations are structured in a way that different managers are responsible for the purchase decision and future operation of the asset. And so because they are different in management, they may have different considerations. Life cycle and building construction. Life cycle costing is relevant to the construction of building and other major items of construction. When a building is planned, several designs might be considered. Each design will have different construction features and they will have different initial capital costs. Now, over the life of the building, annual running costs will vary according to the design that you have for each building. For example, we are given that energy efficient building will incur lower energy cost each year than the ones that are not energy efficient. And the choice of construction material will affect the life of the building and affect the maintenance. So sometimes you might use some high high durable materials, and you'll be maintaining less and you're repairing less than when you bring a low quality material. Then the cost of choice of design will also affect the cost of demolition at the end of the building of the life of the building. So that's it there. Now look at life cycle costing and product life cycle. Life cycle costing, product life cycle. Most products made in large quantities for selling to customers, they go through life cycle. Normally we have about 4 stages, but sometimes now we have about 5 or 6. The first stage is the development stage. This is I would say the product is in the belly. It is conceived. It is not yet born. It is like the 9 months that a baby is being carried. That is the development stage. The baby has not been introduced to the world. So that is the development stage where you are trying to say, okay, should we produce this product to the market? Or that is a very crucial stage, because it is at that stage you will need to decide, should we go ahead with this product or should we scrap it? Then the product introduction stage, you introduce it into the market. Then a period of growth in sales. That means you increase your revenue in units and you increase your market size. So we have market size, market share. Market size, you are increasing your size in the market. Period of maturity, then you have increased your market share. So for you to maintain your market share or increase your market share, you have gone to a maturity period. Then there is a period of decline. Then after decline, then there's a period of withdrawal of the product from the market. So there is the curve here that shows the growth, the profits and the sales. Look at the sales and look at the profits. They almost go in tangent together. Now, at each phase of a product life cycle, selling prices will be altered, costs will differ, the amount invested in capital will vary, spending on advertisement and other marketing activities will change. So these are the things you should remember. At the design and the R&D, that is the design stage, what there will be no selling price, there is no cost, but amount investment in capital will be there. Advertisement may not be there, but you'll be looking at all of this. How does the stage affect each of these costs? Life cycle costing can be important in new product launches. As a company, we want to make profit from the new product, and the technique considers the total cost that must be recovered, which will include research and development costs. I said that's the R&D, training costs, machinery costs, production costs, distribution and selling costs, and all that. Now look at the stage and look at the costs. In the product development stage, you know that research and design costs will increase because it is being developed. So we'll be talking about research, design. That is the cost that will have more effect. You'll not be selling anything there. There is no cost of product. There is no profit. Then you'll be acquiring capital. Capital expenditure will be incurred. Which machines will be acquired in order to make this product? So these are the things you'll be talking about. Then when we introduce the product into the market, we'll be talking about operational costs. Operational costs will go high because you're just starting. Your operational cost will be so high. You need to also make advertisement costs increase so that people will be aware of your product. You have a strong focus on market awareness, and you want to get market share. So you keep increasing your awareness, increasing your distribution so that people will know you everywhere. So set up distribution cost. But your profit may not be much. Yes, your selling price will not be much because you're just coming. Because if you're just coming in, you may be selling the same thing with others or slightly lower, but your operational cost will be higher than people you are competing with, and you also want to make distribution. Then when you are growing in the growth stage, your cost is cost of increasing capacity. So you are increasing your capacity. As you're increasing your capacity, because you are growing now, you now go from one branch to two branch, your cost is increasing. And because of learning effect, which you've learned about learning effect and economic of state scales will affect. So learning curve, like there's the one we did before where it stopped at the growth stage. Remember that question we did one time, and that learning stopped at the growth stage. Okay, so learning effect will take place and perhaps you would have finished learning a growth stage. Economies of scale, you'll be buying more. Because of buying more, you'll be getting them at a cheaper cost per unit. So it means your costs will increase because you are growing. Then your working capital will increase. Then in maturity, now you are stable. You're no longer having learning. So incur cost to maintain the manufacturing capacity. Then your marketing and product enhancement costs to extend your maturity. So now you are looking at market, you have a share of the market. You already have a share of the market. So all you need to do now is to maintain your market share. Let's say you have 40% market share. You need to ensure that you maintain that market share. So what will it take you to maintain a market share? Increase manufacturing capacity, because if you remain stagnant, your market share will reduce. So you increase your manufacturing capacity because there are some people coming to compete with you and you'll be losing customers to them. So you need to increase your manufacturing capacity to cater more. Sometimes too, your selling price might be reduced because you are now a market leader and you want to ensure that you have that market slice of your market share. You may also not be making much profit, unlike people in the growing stage that is making more profit than you, but they don't have that market. So now you're not depending on your market share to sustain you. Then the decline stage, that means you're no longer making profit at all, and um, you are having maybe the product is at the end of its life. Close attention needs to be checked on withdrawal decision. Withdrawal decision might be expensive. You want to withdraw the product from the market or the asset from the market, it might be expensive. Then we have the withdrawal asset decommissioning. Yes, that's the name I was looking for. Decommissioning cost. So the decommissioning cost is the cost of withdrawal of the market from the market, or withdrawal of the asset from its location. Meanwhile, when you were bringing the asset to its location to work properly, you are commissioning the asset. Now, when you are removing it, you are decommissioning it. So that's it. Then possible restructuring costs. then remaining warranty to be supplied. So all these are the things you need to consider when you are looking at the life cycle. So sometimes a question might come out in the exam that may want to combine target cost with product life cycle. They would have told you to talk about product life cycle. If they are asking you calculation on product life cycle, is to calculate life costs, whole life cost, and perhaps life cost per unit. But most times it's going to be discussion, talk about the stages and the kind of cost that you'll be incurred. Sometimes they will mix it up with target cycle, target costing, where you will now do calculation on target cost. Sometimes they will bring it up with lead learning curve. What are the benefits of life cycle costing? Life cycle costing compares revenue and cost of the product over its entire life. And the benefits here includes the potential profitability of products can be assessed before major development of the product is carried out and the cost incurred. So you assess, is this product going to be profitable before we even produce the product? Non-profit making products can be abandoned at an early stage before costs are committed. So as you are designing the product, you are assessing the profitability of the product, and you know whether you want to carry out with the product or not. So sometimes you see some models of a particular asset. Sometimes it takes time before it comes out in the market. Sometimes you see Microsoft will tell you Windows that will be coming out, Windows this, or maybe Apple will be telling you a particular iPhone will come out, Samsung will be telling you theirs. So they need to check if it's going to be profitable before they carry out committed costs. Techniques can be used to reduce cost over the life of the product. So we talked about techniques to reduce cost over the life of the product. We mentioned some of those techniques when we're dealing with target costing. Then we look at the pricing strategy can be determined before the product enters the market. This may lead to better control of marketing and distribution costs. So one of the topics that we'll be taking soon is pricing strategy. We're talking about pricing strategy so that it will enable you to know what to do when you are considering a life cycle costing, because pricing strategy will enable you to determine which market or pricing strategy you will use at different stages of the product life cycle. Attention can be focused on reducing the research and development phase to get the product to market as quickly as possible, because the longer the company can operate without competitors entering into the market even before them, the more revenue they can be earning before they will reach their break-even point. So you don't want you have competitors who are also doing their own research to make products. You need to make your design and research and design and get the product into the market quickly so that before everybody will wake up and realize what is happening, you are breaking even. By monitoring the actual performance of product against plans, lessons can be learned to improve the performance of future products. So when you are looking at the performance, let's say iPhone 12, and you monitor the performance of it as against what you plan. So you have a plan for it, and the actual performance, you monitor the performance against the plan. You're now learning a lesson that, oh, I need to improve my product. I think there was this product that say that we know that if I think it's a brand of Samsung, that if you are near gas, it may just explode. So that's a performance problem. So they may not have that in mind, but over some time when people have complained, they went to test that, found out, oh, we've learned a lesson. What is it that could be causing that to happen? They will not get to find the root cause of it. And when they are making future of even that same brand or other brand, they might withdraw that brand from the market because it may have negative publicity. And when they're now making a future brand, they might learn lesson, and you'll be seeing people advertising that you use it near here as against the previous one, and nothing happens. And that makes them win situation. An understanding of the product life cycle can assist management with decision about pricing, like we said before, performance management, decision making. Let's look at them briefly. Pricing. As a product moves from one stage in its life to the other, a change in pricing strategy might be necessary to maintain your market share. For example, prices might be reduced as a product enters maturity stage. Unlike the introduction stage, your price might increase and you are giving quality. Your price might increase in the growth stage because you are giving quality. So you see, let's say for example, a school is introduced newly, and people, it wants to maintain a big share of the market, it has to reduce its price. So it has a reduction. Maybe you are coming and they are telling you pay a, for each person you bring, you are getting a discount, things like that. And people are coming in. The price was lower. As they are giving you more quality, getting branches, their prices may slightly increase and you don't mind. But when they get to the maturity stage, of course, that stage, a lot of people have copied their model, they are coming in, competing with them hot, hot, they might reduce their price. So different pricing strategy will need to be adopted at each stage. In addition, an understanding of life cycle helps with strategic decisions about pricing. Over the entire life of the product, sales price should be sufficiently high to ensure that a profit is made after taking into consideration all costs incurred. And the cost incurred with startup costs, end of life costs, and annual operating costs. So you see that there are three stages of cost. When you take into all this, the selling price you're going to make is to ensure that um, you make a profit. Performance management. As a product moves from one stage of its life to another, its financial performance will change. Management should understand that an improvement or decline in performances could be linked to changes in the life cycle and should therefore to some extent be expected. Of course, in your initial stage, your performance, your financial performance might not be so much better because you are incurring high costs, your revenue is low, your cost is high, you might not make profit for the first year, might not make profit for the second year, the third year you make small profit, fourth year it's increasing a bit. When you get to your growth stage, you are making steady increase in profits and sales. You get to the maturity stage, your sales is fairly constant, your cost is kind of fairly constant, your profit is just little difference that may not be too significant, it's just there. The decline stage, your profit might reduce because your sales will be dropping, your cost might be fairly constant, so your profit will be dropping. So you need to understand your financial performance at each stage and you know what to do. Decision making. In order to In addition to helping management with decisions on pricing, an understanding of life cycle costing can also help with decision about making new investments. That is introducing a new product into the market or withdrawing a product from the market. So when you are looking at life cycle, you will know that, okay, this product have reached its decline stage. Should we withdraw it now from the market? When should we introduce a new product into the market? Of course, you cannot introduce a new product into the market when the existing one is doing far well, far better. Because the moment you introduce a product into the market, we are telling people that go for this new product. It will start affecting the performance of the current one that you are having. So is it the best time to introduce a new product? It could also be that the product you are introducing is a complement of that as people are using this product, they should also be using this new thing we are introducing, and that will boost it. So it is decision making is important now. When should we introduce this component? Should we introduce this asset? When should we introduce this product? When should we withdraw? This is what we all do in life cycle costing. So far, so good. We've talked about two topics which go as complement. The target costing complements the life cycle costing, which is also important when we are learning curve. So you now see now that your knowledge of this topic will now enable you to be able to do the other ones we did before. So all of these are part of the modern management techniques. You know, the last time we did was throughput accounting, which is also part of the modern management techniques. So what did we learn in target costing today? We learned that we need to set targets on our cost, and that cost will be the ceiling maximum cost. How do we do that? We first of all determine our selling price, determine the profit margin. We said there's a difference between margin and markup. So we're talking about margin. Determine the profit margin. Then we'll remove the profit from the selling price to get the cost target, which is the highest cost we can go. Then we get our expected cost, and we'll now check if there's a cost gap. When there is a cost gap, we tend now to reduce or close the gap by either making our expected cost equal to our target cost or slightly lower. So we look for improvement here and there. How can we improve our processes in order to reduce wastage, to be more effective, to add value, to remove unnecessary things that do not add value? We said some of the advantages is that it helps us to know more about the cost uh, of our processes involved, so that we will be involved in cost management, and that will help. We talk about the product life cycle, we talk about the different stages in the product life cycle and the strategy for pricing that will be done there, and the decisions you need to take, performance management there, and we talked about the advantages and disadvantages. So that's it about these two topics for today: target costing and life cycle costing. So it has been a great day. Despite the hitch we had earlier, we're able to meet our targets. Thank you so much for coming to class today. In our next class, a different topic will be discussed, and I'll let you know before time when that topic will going to be. So for now, good night and have a good day.